Scale drawing, scale up or scale down. This is a Thanksgiving version, and this is a digital lesson. It's a lot of fun for the students. They get to use the fill color feature of Google Slides. And the lesson starts with a definition of what a scale drawing is, and then it gives the students some vocabulary that they're going to need to know in the lesson. They're going to start on slide 4, so they're given a rectangle shape here, and they have to scale this shape up by a scale factor of 2. That means they're going to count the units on each side, and they're going to multiply by 2. So instead of a 3 by 2 rectangle, it will now be a 6 by 4. So to do this, they just click and hold in one of the squares they want to color in, and then they're going to scroll across until they have all of the squares that they want to shade in. Now once they have it shaded in, they're going to come up to the fill color feature, and they're going to choose any color they like. Now they have a scaled up rectangle. We want to point out to the students what happens to the perimeter when they scale up. So here the perimeter of the smaller shape is going to be 10 units. Students need to count around the outside, and then they're going to do the same thing with the larger rectangle, and they're going to find out that it's 20 units. So they take the perimeter of the smaller figure and they multiply by the scale factor. The next one is a different shape. So again, they're going to scroll across until they can find squares that they want to shade in. They can only shade in a rectangle shape at a time. So this is going to be 2 steps on this one. And this time they're scaling up by a scale factor of 3. So they're going to take each of these sides and multiply by 3. Let's see, I'm going to start over here. So click and hold. And 2 times 3 would be 6. So this side would be 6. Choose a color. And now they have a scaled up figure by a scale factor of 3. And again, we're going to look at the perimeter. So the perimeter of the smaller figure will be 10 units. And the perimeter of the larger figure will be the smaller perimeter multiplied by the scale factor of 3. So it should be 30 units, and students can count around the outside and make sure that's correct. The next figure is a little bit more difficult. You may want to start with the students and then let them finish on their own. So this one, again, the scale factor is 3. And this one is just a little bit tricky. Make sure every side is multiplied by 3. So these little pieces are going to be, instead of 1 by 1, they're going to be 3 by 3. So again, have them check the perimeter and see if they can predict what the perimeter of the larger figure is going to be. Now just as a recap for what they've just done, here when the scale factor is 2, the perimeter of the new figure, and they're just going to type in 2 times the perimeter of the smaller figure. And if the scale factor is 3, the new figure is 3 times the perimeter of the smaller figure. Now here we're going to see what happens when they have a scale factor which is a fraction less than 1. And if it's a fraction less than 1, that means the new figure is going to be smaller. So here we're going to take the measurement, the units on each side, and multiply by 1/2 or divide by 2. And this one's a little bit tricky because they're going to keep that empty space in the center. And now they have a scaled down version by scale factor of 1/2. So the new figure is 1/2 the size of the original figure. The next one, they're not going to be using the fill color feature. They're just going to be moving these bars into place. So they just click and hold on each of the bars and they can move them. And again, we have a scale factor of 1/2, which means we're going to take each of the measurements and we're going to divide by 2. Now gets a little bit tricky with these diagonals, so you want to have them start at the bottom. This measurement at the bottom is 4 units, so if I divide by 2, it will now be 2 units. And they can just click and hold on these little blue circles. They can move them wherever they like. So each of these measurements will now be 2 units. And they can make these lines shorter or longer. And then these little pieces here are 2 units, so if we divide by 2, they will now be 1 unit. And students may need a little bit of practice doing this. Now the next part, we just have to find out where the tip of this arrow is. So in the larger figure, if we count from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we divide that 8 by 2, it will now be 4 units from the bottom. And that means the tip of our arrow will be here. And then we can just move these diagonal pieces to connect. And there we have a figure that's 1/2 the size of the larger figure. Now the next thing we want them to do is look at what happens to the area. So here we have a fairly simple square 3 by 3. We're going to scale up by a scale factor of 2, so we now have a 6 by 6. Now if we look at the area of the smaller figure is 3 by 3 or 9 square units. The larger is 6 by 6 or 36 square units. And you want to point out to the students that you take your smaller area and you're going to multiply by the scale factor squared. 2 squared is 4. So if we multiply 9 times 4, we're going to get the area of the larger figure. And they're going to do the same thing in the next one. And then a little recap again: when the scale factor is 2, the area of the new figure is 2 squared, or 4 times the area of the smaller figure, and so on. And then the very last slide, they've got this drag and drop vocabulary, and they're just going to click and hold on the edge and move these into the correct place in the sentence frames. So that is a digital lesson, Scale Drawings, the Thanksgiving version.